Hello, we appreciate you joining us for Webinar Wednesday. Today we have Kerrie Burch, School Library Systems Coordinator at the Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, Essex BOCES in New York to discuss why she began seeking a new library management system or started researching and ultimately chose TLC's Library.Solution for schools. But before we begin, I'll mention a few housekeeping things. First, we are recording, so if you want to share this with your colleagues to watch it later, it'll be up on our website, tlcdelivers.com/webinars tomorrow. But since you're joining us live, you have the opportunity to ask questions. So please feel free to use the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. Kerrie, thank you so much for joining us for Webinar Wednesday.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our process.
So just to start, can you please introduce yourself and Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, Essex BOCES?
Of course. Thank you so much for saying it, the long version too. We like to shorten it up and call it the WSWHE BOCES because it is a mouthful. So as Ashley explained, I am the school library system coordinator here at the BOCES. And so my job essentially is to provide professional development to school librarians. We provide free resources because we are partially funded by the state. And we also provide automation service for our school libraries in the region. We have 31 districts in my region and about 36,000 students total in those schools, in those districts. So it's a really fun, cool job. And I'm really excited to be able to explain a little bit more about why we ended up looking at a different automation system.
Thank you for explaining BOCES. It is a unique system. I was under another BOCES growing up in New York, so I understand it, but it can be different for some folks.
Exactly. And New York is one of the only states that has it. A BOCES is basically a board of cooperative educational services. So in addition to what I do, we have other departments that help with data, professional development, IT, like you name it. And we help our districts with that. It's really unique and I'm glad to be part of it.
That's awesome. So I'm going to jump into some questions now. You used another system for many years before migrating to Library.Solution for schools. What were some of the reasons you started looking at other library management systems?
Well, it is always kind of good practice to take a look at the automation system that you're using just to make sure that it still meets the needs of all of your users, your students, and your school librarians. And in our region, we hadn't done that in about 5 or 6 years. The person who was in this role before me had done it a couple years before she left. So it was definitely time for us just to kind of take a look and see, is our system still meeting our needs? Is it doing everything we need it to do? And so that's kind of what started us on the process of looking at something new.
Were there any frustrations or like significant problems that you wanted to solve with the new system?
Yeah, so one of our concerns with our former system was the student data privacy aspect. In New York State, we have some pretty strict Ed Law 2D data privacy laws that our vendors all have to adhere to. And there were just some things with the other system that were a little outdated, and it concerned us in terms of, making sure that our students' data was secure. We also really wanted to streamline some of the processes that were more labor intensive with the system we had. So for example, in our old system, if we have about 64 different school libraries that we serve and who have their own catalog. And in order to update the calendar, for example, my librarian would have to go in and update each one individually for a whole year. And that's a lot of work to do. And so that's just one example of a few different things that were just really labor intensive. And we were looking to kind of, you know, not have to do that way anymore.
Were there challenges your school and staff experienced related to their own um, uh, or their experiences? Were challenges with student experience, staff experience?
Yeah. Well, the interface itself was rather clunky and it kind of outdated. I mean, if you were to compare the two right now, the old one and TLC, TLC is, you know, years and years newer looking and it's interactive and the kids really like it. They see it as a fun place to go, whereas the old system was just, it's outdated, and it just wasn't meeting our needs. Some of the back end features too were somewhat difficult for our librarians to navigate and control. Getting a report to do exactly what you needed it to do was a challenge. There are reports that I have to do for the state, so that they will give us our funding. And it was really a challenge to pull the report that we needed in order to get the right information to them. And our librarians found the same thing with the reports that they needed to do.
And that's, you said 64 libraries, 64 reports.
Sites. Yep.
Yeah,
It's
a
a
lot.
lot.
Um, was there any staff workflow challenges that you wanted to also, change that were major drivers for your change?
Yeah, so part of the service that we provide here is we do the cataloging for our schools. We believe that our school librarians, as much as possible, should be able to focus on the teaching that they're doing. School librarians aren't just checking books in and out, as we know, and so we want them to be able to do that important task of teaching. As a result, we do their cataloging for them, and sometimes it's super simple, and you just upload a file, and it goes in, and it's beautiful. But one of the things that we noticed that was happening is sometimes we would find records that, as my librarian likes to call them, they have no pants. So they look great on top. They have a title and an author and all the nice stuff you should have. But when you start looking deeper into the record, uh, they were missing things like subject headings. And those are really important because that's how students are looking up, in books, and they want to know that they can find what they want. So that was a challenge because then we had to dig deeper. And when you have a lot of those to do, it really cuts into the time that you have to do other more important things.
I think everyone watching is going to steal that no pants phrase for records because that's just hilarious, but also a very good descriptor.
Yeah,
Um,
she came up with that. She's
it's,
amazing.
it's really good. So, were there strategic goals or long term visions that you had for your libraries that your system couldn't support? So, any future growth that you were hoping for that just wasn't available or capable in your old system?
Yep. As we know, school librarians are kind of responsible for always being on the cutting edge of all the things. We have to be on top of technology and the greatest books and the teaching and all of the things. And so we and our librarians really strive to be the leaders in our buildings. And our former system didn't kind of allow for that because of it was outdated and there were various issues with it. And in terms of thinking longer term, we want to be able to be innovative. We want our students to interact with the system more. And with our old system, yes, they could have, but it was very difficult, very clunky, and it really didn't work well. Whereas with TLC, it will. And we're going into our second year. And so, our students are going to start to learn this system more and our librarians are learning it more. And will, I'm hoping to see that the students will really get involved with using it to its fullest capacity.
We have LS2 pack and we have a kids pack. Do you find that your your kiddos like to use the kids pack as well?
Yes. Yeah, our librarians, that's one of the things that they really liked when we were demoing the various systems. They really liked how it was very user friendly, having the images right there for them to click on, and taking them to the books was really helpful. Especially since COVID, a lot of our students have struggled with reading, even some of our older students. And so providing alternatives for them to use to do searching has really helped.
That's fantastic to hear. I'm gonna jump to the evaluation side because I love the idea that you take the approach you take of evaluating outside your current system every 5 or 6 years just to see what's out there and what's possible.
Yeah.
So, what was your process for evaluating potential new vendors?
Yeah. So once we decided that it was time to actually go through this process, I really wanted to make sure that our librarians were a large part of the decision-making process. This is not a decision that I should be making on my own as the administrator. This is really a collaborative thing. They're the ones who are using it every single day, and so they're the ones who have to be happy with it. And so that was top priority. I also wanted to make sure, though, that our administrators in the region and our IT directors were involved as well, because their unique roles kind of play into this, especially with our IT people. We began the process by asking vendors to create a 15-minute demo of their product. We had very specific criteria in mind in terms of what we wanted to make sure we saw. And that was a really big ask. We realized that. But at the same time, we were trying to get in as much as we could about a product in as short of time because our librarians don't have a ton of time. We wanted to see kind of how each product handled things like, the basics of checkout, and cataloging, and the overall ease of use. How user friendly is it? We did ask all the librarians to watch each video and complete a survey that they then used to narrow down our finalists. So we gave them a few weeks to be able to go in and do that. We had several. We didn't get everybody, but we can't make them if they choose not to. That's how it is, but that's okay. We had several who did go through the whole process. And when those results were in, I had our council. It's kind of our quasi governing body, but they're who I go to when we have decisions to make, and I like their feedback is really valuable. So our council looked at those results and they determined that even though there were like 3 vendors that everybody really kind of liked, they only wanted to move forward 2 because one of the vendors did not have a union catalog. And a union catalog is essential in our region. Our former vendor, our former vendor and TLC ended up moving into the final round after the council discussed it. At that point, we're getting into February, early February. We had librarians, administrators, IT directors, and anybody else essentially who wanted to come came to our BOCES for a day of kind of digging a little bit deeper into the systems. Each vendor had the same amount of time to present on their product. So we did like one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then after each vendor finished, we had them complete a survey right there so that we could gauge where things were. And then once both vendors had presented, we had them complete one final survey, A or B, which one do you like? TLC was overwhelmingly selected, like over 95%. So that was pretty telling.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty telling. But I did still have to go through the other 2 surveys and compile the data, and then I shared that with the council. And then they voted to go with TLC based on the feedback that was in the surveys, and the fact that it was overwhelmingly selected. So that was really, really telling. And it I don't know, I was very happy that they chose the way they did too, honestly.
It does sound like a lot to ask for so much information in such a short amount of time, but honestly, it's a great approach because it gives you that first impression of just how much that vendor wants to put themselves in your shoes and to show you the best that they have.
Right.
So I don't think that's crazy, but my colleagues might think it's a little different. Anyway, so what criteria were the most important to you and your team during these evaluations?
Yeah. So we wanted a system that was, really user friendly. It has the ability to engage students when they're using it. Again, looking for something that's really innovative. And that could also meet the varied needs of school librarians in our region. We have very, very tiny, tiny rural schools along with, city schools. So we have and everything in between. So everybody has a different need. We wanted a system that we could afford because of that, they're small schools. We already knew that any change in what we were purchasing was going to be a big impact, an increase for our district. So we wanted to be very cautious of that. Um, we on the surveys, we basically asked people to rate the systems based on things like appearance, searching, interlibrary loans, how digital and web resources were integrated, the technology side, so data privacy, single sign-on, of course, circulation, overdue notices, everybody loves those, and we need to have those, inventory, customization, catalog management and reporting. So there was a lot for them to kind of be looking at, but automation systems are robust systems and there's a lot to them. And you really want to make sure you're getting the best thing that you can get that meets the most needs that you have.
That sounds like a really good list of what your librarians are looking for. And I can from the schools that I've worked with, interlibrary loan is really critical when you have schools that are sharing resources that are being shared. So that's an excellent point you make about when you're looking at a new vendor or at a vendor in general, or even your own.
Yep.
Um, so, what initial impressions did you have about TLC during demos and chats and
Yep.
meetings?
Yep. So before we even put this out to the librarians, my librarian and I kind of looked at a couple of other systems and had just, real quick 1 hour demo kind of things to just get an overlay to decide who we were going to kind of work with because we can't have everybody, we do have to narrow it down a bit. And when we saw TLC, my librarian was ecstatic, and so was I. We were very impressed. It was night and day compared to the system we were using before. The student-facing interface was really intuitive, and it looked great. And the librarian interface is functional, and it's rather easy to navigate as well. As when we were looking at it, that's what it felt like.
That's really great to hear. Um, were there specific features or functionality that TLC offered that your previous system lacked that was really compelling to you?
Yeah, so one of our concerns with our former system was that lack of awareness around student data privacy. So that was super important. That was probably the biggest impetus to get us going on the whole journey. And TLC really clearly showed that they valued and adhered to the protection of student data. And that was really huge to us. I will say that has been a little bit of a learning curve for some of our librarians because things like timing out after a certain period of time that took them a little getting used to, and we tried to explain, well, listen, if that was your bank account information up there, would you want it just staying open? And when you explain it like that, they get it and they're like, okay, fine, I don't mind logging back in. We also really appreciated that we could easily set up SSO and link to the student management systems. um, we tried some of that with our former system. It was not very successful. A lot of our districts didn't really want to participate. We didn't really give them a choice this time. And I will say that as a result of it was like herding cats, but as a result, everybody's on and everybody's doing great. And we absolutely, it's been wonderful. So one of the best things about that is when a student comes into a new school, their information's already in the catalog. Librarians don't have to take the time to add them because it all just flows in and it's just lovely. It's a real time saver.
I cannot imagine being one of your librarians and having like 10 new kids and having to just enter that data and
Right.
all without having it sync up with your student information system. That's a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
work.
and especially when you have 20 others standing in front of you wanting to check out their book, so that is a challenge. So having that be so seamless is fabulous.
Did TLC understand your need factors in your decision? Like, did TLC demonstrate a strong grasp of your unique challenges? You're a unique system, so you have very different challenges from, say, a single district.
Yeah. Yep. So I want to say that like one of the really important things that our new library system had to have was a union catalog. And when I first started talking with Jerry, I said it's a non-negotiable. We have to have it. And it's not just a non-negotiable because our region does so well with it. It's because the state requires us to have it. Um, and for good reason, I mean, all those rural schools, I was a school librarian in a rural school. I relied so heavily on interlibrary loan. I didn't have the budget to buy everything. So it's a really big deal in our region. And so it's ingrained in everything we do. So as I was talking with TLC to prepare for the automation review in our region, I really made it clear we can't move forward unless we have a union catalog. And as a result, they did take our concerns very seriously, and were able to devise a system that really would work for us and how unique we are. So knowing that you truly listen to your customers and make changes based on what our needs are really went a long way in our region. And not, even after the sale, that has continued. So it's not just a matter of, oh, we want to make the sale and we want to have you on. It has continued even after. Our former system, they did a lot of listening. They did a lot of promising, oh, it's coming, oh, it's coming. We heard that a lot, but they didn't deliver, and TLC delivered. So,
I love that. And Jerry Davies is a great salesman, and he's a very understanding about schools. So that's so good to hear.
yeah.
So beyond the software, since we're talking about Jerry, beyond the software itself, what about TLC as a company? Our reputation, our values, long-term visions that we introduced you to that influenced your decision, as well as the functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the very first conversation with Jerry, it was really evident that you are always striving to do better and to be better. And that growth mindset to me is really important in a field like ours. School librarianship, we are always evolving, we are always changing. And a company that keeps up with that and continues to innovate to me is really important. It really has been a pleasure to work with everyone throughout this process. I mean, if we have an issue, it is solved. If it's not solved, it's at least started to be solved right away, and I cannot say enough for the support that TLC provides. There's not a negative thing I would say about TLC. And I'm a very genuine person. Nobody knows me, but I'm a very genuine person, and I would not say that if I did not mean it. And I am not a salesperson either. So, it has really, the fact that you guys are always willing to improve, even, our implementation was a little bit rough, but a lot of that was because we were a system that you hadn't dealt with before. But you know what? Everybody was extremely professional and kind and helpful, and we're going to figure this out. And not once did I worry about it. I've been through other implementations where that doesn't happen at all. They take your records, they say, okay, here, go fix them and let us know when you're done. And okay, here's a day of training and that's it. And that's not TLC at all.
I'm not a salesperson either, but I agree. Our school support team is very unique and very good at what they do, but I can also not imagine getting one day of training and a dump of data and saying good luck. That does sound very strange, but that's a perfect segue because I really do want to talk about our implementation, the migration experience with TLC. Um, Migrations are complex, just like you said. They can be a little rough, but from your experience, what was the biggest challenge you faced during the migration process? And how did TLC's implementation team and support team help you manage that?
Yeah. So yeah, the support, and I just said it, but I'll say it again. The support was top notch. I've gone through other migrations, and TLC support is next to none. Even after the implementation has been amazing. Because our system is so large and it's complex. I mean, we are that the union catalog piece, because we have some schools who use a different system. Getting that all to work together, we did have some unique challenges. But like I said, TLC really navigated them very professionally, very quickly, collaboratively. You could tell that the team really was a team that worked together and worked together well. There was no challenge that we faced that they could not meet and exceed our expectations with. And I really truly mean that. It's been amazing.
I'm going to pass that along to our folks because they're going to be just so chuffed to hear that. Um, along with implementation, and we talked a little bit about support already.
Yeah.
How did the support and the training and the implementation compare, like to your previous experiences?
Right. So kind of like I said before, I mean, we had this was when I was in a different BOCES. We had moved from one system over to another competing system, and it was one of those situations where I'd come into the job as they had just made the decision to migrate. And the only experience I had had with migrating was in my own region where we had gone from Cersei Dynex to something else. And so it's not like I had any of the background knowledge about that, but this particular one, um, this was the one where they basically said, give us your data. Okay, here it is. Fix what's incorrect and give it back to us and we'll load it in. And then when it came time for the training, um, they sent a person out. We had my librarian there and I had 2 days of training maybe, and then we were the ones going out and training all the other librarians individually. Um, and it was a system that was set up very differently from anything I had seen before. So it was really difficult to grasp how that system worked. But I have to say that, in this situation with TLC, that wasn't the case at all. I mean, we had weekly meetings during implementation where we would learn a little bit about the system at those implementation meetings, and then also, select the settings and things that we needed for our system. But we would have so many people on those calls. I was like, oh my God, we feel so loved because the other place it was like, oh, here you go. And you guys like literally weekly meetings to get things set up and to learn about the system as we're going. It was just it was astounding and we felt really supported throughout the process. And that has continued. I mean, with our trainers who have worked with us, that they have been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I will say that looking back, I think if I were to do it over again, I would probably have the trainers come in person. I think that would work better, but that was on me. That was nothing that the trainers did or did not do. I just thought, okay, well, we'll do a virtual one. There's no real reason to have them come here. It's fine. But in the future, I would have had them come in person. I think that would work better. Um, and that support really has continued now that we're live and using the system. We have been for just about a year now. And customer support is absolutely amazing too.
Our training team's going to love to hear that. And I'm sure they would have really enjoyed coming around to your part of New York because it is beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
What advice would you give to other schools considering going through this a very big transition, the library management system transition? What advice would you give?
Yeah, you're right. It is a huge transition. It is a big change. What I would say is definitely do your best to see what automation systems are out there. We really were blown away with most interfaces, and our librarians were too, simply because ours was so old looking. Everything was like, oh my God, like we felt like we moved into a different century. Like it was that stark. So, definitely see what's out there, but make sure that, yes, it can be pretty and that's good. Make sure the guts of the system do what you need it to do. I explained all the different criteria we had for selecting our system. It's really important that you do look at all those things, because you need it to work for what you need it to do. Get feedback from multiple stakeholders, not just librarians. Have administrators, IT people take a look. You will definitely have more success if you have support from them as well. Because then, when you do go through the implementation, one of the things that really surprised me was our librarians. I kind of feel like I didn't prepare them enough for change. And so they would get very flustered and very, oh my God, it's just not working. And, we'd have to, of course, walk them through all the things. But, kind of prepare people that, this is going to be a big change. And what I was surprised at was they saw everything in the different demos, but I don't think it translated to when we actually moved. And they were like, well, it doesn't do what this system did. Well, no, it's a different system. And so that was a little bit challenging. And just, remember it's a huge change no matter what system you have now. You want to prepare your staff and your librarians for that. It will be for the best. Like I had to keep telling myself, this is for the best. This is for the best. And we made the right decision. And I can tell you now, yes. It can feel challenging when you're going through it, but when you come out on the other end, I mean, by the end of the school year last year, our librarians were sharing tips and tricks with each other on our listserv. So to go from, oh my God, I can't make it work, to sharing tips, that's huge in 1 year.
That's incredible. And I'm glad that that happened. It does show that it's not hard. You just have to keep trying. And here's a little tip and
Yeah.
trick. That is so great to hear. Um, so since migrating, what are the most significant improvements
Yeah.
or the most positive impacts that you've observed for yourself, for your IT, for your librarians?
Yeah. So I would say cataloging is a breeze. Our records now have pants. Um, so that's huge right there. It takes no time at all. The other thing is in our region, again, we support our librarians with a lot of the automation system, and we don't want them having to take a lot of time to do cataloging. Sometimes though, like if they have a book fair, they have to add those books in because that's not something we can load in for them necessarily. But what I really like about TLC is we were able to kind of lock it down enough that they can still add it in, and we can go in and zhuzh it up, give it all of its clothing, so to speak. And we do that really, really easily. Also, our librarians have started digging into the system for themselves a little bit, and figuring things out themselves, which that was really nice to see, especially when our implementation, and they're like, oh, it doesn't work, and I hate this, and I want to go back, and da, da, da. It was good to see that by the end of the year they were finally sharing with each other, because for a little while there I was a little concerned. And again, I think that's on me. I don't feel like I prepared them enough for how big of a change this would be.
Don't beat yourself up too much about it, though. Because it
Thanks.
is. I've been through that process as a librarian as well, and it is that, did I make the right choice or not? And I can say that for us, when I did that at my library, yes, it was the right choice, and it definitely sounds like, oh, I mean, bias here, but that your librarians feel like it was the right move as well as you.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, what aspect of TLC's system or even the partnership have exceeded your expectations since your go live date?
Yeah, I would say the continued support. In working with other systems, one system, the support was good. I mean, we literally had a direct line to the owner, and that was great. Um, with the other system, you'd have to call a support number, and they didn't understand our setup, and it was very difficult to get things fixed. That's not true with TLC. The ticketing system that we use, we can call in if we need to. Like all of that is amazing. Everybody's very responsive to any issues that pop up. They always listen to our ideas for enhancements, which we really, really appreciate, and support us however we need it. I really could not ask for better support. And that's not just the customer support piece or when we have an issue, it's also, it's the trainers. I never would have expected to have much conversation with the trainers after the initial training. Oh no, they still come to our meetings. They still offer to help us. And that's amazing. That's not something I ever would have expected because we're so used to kind of doing it on our own that to have that additional support is really nice. It frees us up to do some other things that we hadn't been able to do before.
That's big. That's big to hear. Um, so I'm going to ask a question that I always like to ask folks is like, what are you really excited about coming down the line with our development or like within the TLC ecosystem? What are you really excited to see?
So one of the, I don't want to say pain point, but one of our little issues has been with the ILL system. And we again, our librarians are used to doing things a certain way, and so learning something new is a bit of a challenge sometimes. But one of the things that we are really, really, really looking forward to is the decline button for interlibrary loans. I hear it's really close, and we are so looking forward to it. And also, I also think that one of the things they're working on too is some wording that helps to better track where the ILL is. Because one of the things that we've seen is that it'll say in transit, but we don't know what that means. Is it going from the courier to the school? Has it been sent yet? Has it been received yet? And that was a challenge because when someone fills an ILL, yes, they're going to put it in the courier, but it should only take a day or two given our system to get there. And some people were finding that that wasn't happening for whatever reason. I think it's just the way that the system in TLC works in terms of saying where something is. So I'm looking forward to that being improved as well. But I also think that there are other really great improvements coming with TLC, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how it continues to be improved. It's a great system. And like I said at the beginning, you guys are always looking to improve. And to me, that's huge. Our former system, they were not looking to improve. They were looking to kind of just status quo, and that doesn't work in our profession. And so we really appreciate the fact that TLC does continue to improve all the time.
It is exciting to see what's coming in the future, especially because we use a system called Ellis Ideas that allows our librarians and our customers to submit requests and enhancements and improvements that our product team actually listens to. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear you're excited about
Yeah. Well,
declines.
yeah, well, and I also I send my librarians there all the time because they'll say, well, I really wish it did this. Okay, go submit an enhancement. Because and I said, the more people who do that, they're going to hear that and they're going to make those improvements and they're going to make those changes. May not be today or tomorrow, but if it's something that really will help everybody, it'll happen.
I yes, I like to say tell all your friends at the libraries, at the schools, and just have them upvote. That's one of the nice things about being part of TLC is just like nudge nudge. If you want it, there's a place we can send you to.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to really thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm just going to share a slide deck really quick um, and start a poll for those who might be looking for a little bit more information before I answer some Q&As that came through. So if you'd like a little bit more information about TLC and get as excited as Kerrie has, just click yes. Otherwise, you don't have to click anything. But one person asked about a little bit more about how your rural libraries are able to how they were able to learn and like was the I'm going to rephrase it, but how did the rural libraries get the same benefit of training and do they get the same benefit of support as others do?
Yeah. Yeah, so our pricing structure at our BOCES, the way that we run the service, it's our service is the same whether you have 25 students, which one of our districts has, or 2,500, actually more than 2,500 students in some of our schools. So the service pricing is set up in terms of, you know, the service is the same no matter what, and so the price is going to be the same per site no matter what. But our rural schools, they come to the trainings that we have. We do offer a variety we have in-person trainings, we have virtual trainings. We have not done asynchronous trainings. I don't think we're there yet, just because we haven't had the system long enough. That's my view. But they are able to participate. And I have to say that our administrators in the region are phenomenal in terms of letting our librarians out to be able to attend training. Whether it's TLC training or other professional development we're doing, we're very fortunate that they will allow for that to happen.
That's fantastic. I know it can be hard for some of the rural librarians to leave their
Yeah,
districts, especially when 25 students in a district. That is one of the smallest I've ever heard.
yep, yep. It's way up north in the Adirondacks. They're super tiny.
But it's so beautiful up there.
It is. Yep.
Another question was actually again a little bit about the BOCES. Are you the only BOCES in New York? Is this like a unique to your region, or are there others?
Nope. So if I remember correctly, there are 40 BOCES, and then there are five what we call big five or cities. So the cities are, of course, New York City, and then Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, and I don't remember the last one. Maybe Yonkers or something. But so and so the BOCES themselves all work um, relatively the same in terms of we provide services to districts. The districts themselves purchase those services, and one of the benefits of them purchasing those services is that they get state aid back on the services that they purchase, and so
Mm.
that's one reason for them to want to purchase those services. And for some of our rural districts who, they have really high aid ratios, it makes sense for them to do that. Did that answer the whole question?
You did. You definitely, yes, I think so. And so this structure, they support every library in a district or in the multiple districts that you serve?
Yep. Yes. So like in some states, it tends to be by county.
Mm-hmm.
In New York State, it's not. It's these really odd drawn regions. I don't know how they determined what those regions would be, but they are a little bit different. The region that I'm in is actually the second largest geographically in the state. But there are other regions that may have more districts and more students. Um, but we all offer support to our school librarians, whether we're a BOCES or a Big Five. And again, we do have some state aid that we receive to be able to help our district. So not not every district takes part in every service in a BOCES, but every district for the most part, is a member of the school library system in a BOCES.
So it's uh, again, because I came from a BOCES, I know how the services work, and it
Yeah.
does. When you described how you were able to find a system that could take into account all of those unique needs, that's such a great feeling to know that no matter what kind of library or school library or school system you're like, you can still get that same. We will work with you, not tell you just do it yourself.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Kerrie, it is such a pleasure to talk to you. I've talked to you before, and you are such a great you're just such a great person to talk to. So
Oh,
thank you
you
so
too,
much for
Ashley. Thank you.
thank you so much. And just wrapping things up a little bit for today. The recording again will be available on our website, tlcdelivers.com/webinars starting tomorrow. And if you are interested in hearing from one of our fantastic representatives, please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, Kerrie, I'm going to let you get back to your day and thank everyone for participating and coming to the webinar.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.